And all that didn't as well in the last 7 days of sporting history. In Adelaide, the Crows continued to fly high as the Cats could barely manage 9 goals, let alone 9 lives. Also, if you hadn't heard, the Tigers booked their date to football's biggest event as they shrunk the Giants down to size with a terrifically terrifying third quarter Tiger tirade. Lots more news as well from Punt Road as Dustin Martin shapes somewhat of a smoky for tonight's Brownlow medal, and we talk a little bit of MRP for you and me. Elsewhere and roundaballs, the Slick City succeed in a scintillating show against the lowly Crystal Palace, and a divided Australia finally unites under a common cause as we express our outrage at superstar Sam Kerr's Player of the Year snub. All this and more on a podcast bursting with so much to talk about, it may just explode in a similar fashion to the Richmond supporters sitting in the front row last Saturday. I am Brodie, and joining me to unpack the week that was around the sporting globe is my co-host, my dearly befriended, wonderfully splendid, sometimes offended, but unlike a certain Richmond Football Club captain, definitely not suspended, it's Matthew Evans.
Thank you, Brodie.
There we go.
Thank you for making it all the way. We're here in a studio setup, which is really nice, and we're here in Brighton.
We've got the bright lights on.
Bright lights in Brighton.
Shining lights on every single one of our delightful pores and...
Yeah, absolutely. I look a bit... a couple of shades...
dishevelled.
A couple of shades lighter than Michael Jackson at the moment.
We got a little bit of foundation on.
Yeah, possibly. But may God rest, have peace on his soul, whatever. But
yes, you 2 seconds to get into a dead celebrity. Yeah, let's keep going.
Well, I haven't got into a dead celebrity, but there's always a cue for a Michael Jackson joke somewhere.
All right. Hello.
Right. Okay.
How are we doing?
Not too bad.
Happy Monday, everybody.
What the hell was that?
Happy Monday.
Jeez, it is Happy Monday. Everyone, especially for Richmond supporters. Gee, I watched the MCG. I was watching the game. I was after watching Old Brighton in the VAPA, both reserves and seniors winning their grand finals. Congratulations to them. But I watched the MCG and I saw it and I said it. I was like, I'm watching this, and honestly, it looks like a whole bunch of termites eating away at a plank of wood. It was festering all those Richmond supporters. But
festering with Richmond supporters.
They are so rampant, those Richmond supporters.
But good on them. I can't blame them at all. It was quite a sight to see. You had 95,000 just completely out of control Richmond fans who were celebrating something that hadn't happened in a long time.
There were more Giants fans than I thought that were there. They actually made a pretty good noise.
I was only expecting 2 or 3, but there was 7 or 8 there.
Yeah. Oh. But they actually took up quite a bit, and I reckon they plonked a microphone in there, so it actually sounded like...
Right, it's that GWS noise. But I tell you what, they can plonk all the microphones in there they want. There was an electric atmosphere for Richmond.
But how about the reception when the Giants walked out? Delidio's 250th game, and then to be booed.
He was a great servant for that club, but I tell you what, all's fair in love and war, and when it comes to prelim finals... No holds barred. Every man for himself. And Brett Delidio, doesn't matter if you gave the Tigers 12 years of excellent service. You're on the opposition.
It's very harsh. I think
behind enemy lines. So.
I think it's very harsh. But anyway, that's the way it is. It is a tough industry, isn't it?
It's been an excellent week for Richmond supporters, an excellent week for Adelaide supporters.
I must say
as well.
something controversial here. I don't think many people are that intelligent when they boo.
You don't think that many people are that intelligent when they boo? It's an emotional reaction more than anything, isn't it? There's no reason or logic behind it. It's just, we'll get caught up in the day.
Reason and logic with Richmond supporters, yeah. No, I'm happy for the Tigers. And Brodie, as I did say in the first podcast, I did say to mark my words, if Richmond beat Geelong in the qualifying final, they will win the premiership, and I could be right.
You could be right. You're looking more and more likely every week.
So don't go to town with me yet, Richmond supporters. I am taking the piss out of you, but I did make a bold prediction. But it is exciting. But we have plenty of sport to go through. We've got some AFL we'll go through in depth. We'll go through both prelim finals and obviously do a bit of a review into the grand final.
Big preview coming up.
We've also had grand finals in the VFLW. Darabin defeating Diamond Creek in a really good game. The VFL Grand Final. What an exciting grand final.
Excellent game.
It was written how it should be, always that after the goal siren. And actually, that was not the first time. It happened later that night in the TAC Cup Grand Final between the Geelong Falcons and the Sandringham Dragons.
Excellent games. Very fantastic.
And that's just, I was actually had a moment that was a really good, was almost my greatest of the whole time for the last 7 days, because how good the next tier of football was and how exciting it was. And I think possibly next year, I mean, we are seeing the return of Frankston, but we are seeing the demise of North Ballarat. So it would be interesting to see, but I think a lot of people might pay attention to sort of that tier down to AFL football.
I hope so. Although if they keep producing games like they did yesterday, then you can't help but tune in, because that was some exciting stuff. But before we get into that, I think we've got some other things we want to talk about, especially those AFL final previews. But I think that you wanted to kick things off.
Yes.
Matthew Evans.
Maybe we'll start with the greatest. Let's get everyone excited. This is a really good segment. I think everyone at home enjoyed it. Josh Cregan, who will be listening and watching, he really enjoys this show. Shout out to him. And we're going to start with the greatest of all time in the last 7 days. Obviously, we are looking to compile a bit of a list. And Brodie, who is your greatest of all time for the last 7 days?
Well, when it comes to AFL finals, Matthew, and I've watched a couple over my time, I believe you probably will have as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Games are made up of heroes that stand up to the occasion and make a name for themselves on the big stage. So I'm going to give my greatest of all time of the last 7 days to Daniel Rioli, who really played out of his skin.
Oh, how good.
The other day. Just an absolutely phenomenal effort against GWS. Kicked his career best haul of goals. Was kicking them from the boundary. And it really, for a young kid who's in his first ever prelim final, Richmond's first ever prelim final for quite a long time, to get them into their first grand final for an even longer time, that's the sort of stage where a young 20-year-old can buckle under the pressure. But I've never seen someone rise to the occasion the way that he did. Of course, a lot of talk about him living with Damien Hardwick as well. Would have been a very, very happy car ride home. Happy Daniels sitting in the back. I was going to say,
how good are the Riolis in September? On the MCG.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And he was absolutely excellent. It was one of those, a real star-making game. And if you can play half as well as he did against GWS, against Adelaide this coming Saturday, he's going to light the MCG up, and a real cult hero around the club. He's become Daniel Rioli. I know, speaking as someone who knows a lot of Richmond supporters, there's a lot of love for little Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was an absolute star. So I'm going to give my greatest of all time of the last 7 days to Daniel Rioli for an absolutely outstanding game against GWS.
No, fantastic. He was really
very
good.
Proud.
And
Excellent.
I think we'll touch on him a bit later in our review of that game. But my greatest, I'm giving it to two people. First of all, to Harry Hill from Old Brighton. He won the Premier B Best and Fairest, but he tore the grand final to shreds. He kicked a goal. So there was a bit of a stale period. That Old Brighton were leading about 3 goals after half time. 1 goal apiece in third goal. So it was a real stalemate. And then Old Scotch, got off to a really good start. They were getting the momentum, and they were kicking the goals. And all of a sudden, Harry Hill he took the game by the scruff of the neck, and he kicked a few important goals, including the sealer from a centre clearance 70 metres out.
70 metres?
70 metres out, I tell you.
Man.
And
right.
You know what?
Rock and roll.
Those Old Brighton boys, they were excited. I mean, they've had
Harry Hill's that's a really good old-fashioned football name. That's someone I could see lining up for the Melbourne Demons in 1942 off the half-back flank. I like that name.
I'm hoping
Hill.
I'm hoping he can line up for Melbourne in 2018.
Be cool.
There is obviously, but there is actually speculation that he might be picked up by a VFL team. We'll have to get him on the program. Harry, please get on the program. If there's anyone famous or potentially famous that would like to be on the program, that would be great.
Please,
gives us a bit of street cred. Absolutely. But that's why I've got the Vaffa. I've got the Old Brighton jumper. This is my playing jumper from the under 19s.
Yeah, it's very, very proud man today.
This is actually pretty loose. So I might have lost a bit of weight, but
maybe.
But anyway,
maybe
the other team I was going to give it my greatest of all time for the last 7 days was, of course, the PNG Hunters in the Queensland Intrust Cup. They won their first piece of silverware, and I could tell you that everyone in PNG are so rapt about this team. This is their flagship team. They are NRL crazy in PNG, and it's been a great year for Papua New Guinea in terms of sport. They won the International Cup, and also I think they're just about to get there because they are still a developing country, and I think, and they also had last year they had the Pacific Games, so I think it's going to be a really good time for PNG, and hopefully they can develop into some of the powerhouses. And of course, they're hosting some of the games for the 2017 Rugby League World Cup, which is being played in Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea later this year. So we might touch on that.
All happening.
A World
in
Cup
Papua
is
New
happening.
Guinea.
There's also a World Cup of golf happening this year
You don't say.
at Royal Melbourne.
I can barely contain my excitement.
I'm on the Deakin Golfers Association. You better be careful, Brodie. Be careful. But there's plenty of sport.
You'll take a swing.
But this is why we love sport. There's so much sport going around.
There's so much sport going around, but I think in Melbourne, one sport always at the forefront of the conversation, especially after the week that we
Hang
had.
on, we got to do this first.
Oh, hang on, I'm being stopped.
We did try this a couple of weeks ago, but we're gonna try it again.
We have to look at the other side of the coin if we do the best, don't
The
we?
worst of all
worst of all
time for
time.
the last 7 days. Brodie, is there anyone that is worthy of?
Now, I'm not actually too sure here, but can you give me the name of anyone on the match review panel by any chance? Or maybe we'll reserve
Hang
our
on,
judgment
because later
until
we have
after
just
the
as a
coaching
disclaimer,
decision.
we're recording at 20 to 10. And
Yeah,
we don't know the
I've
match review
got in trouble before for saying
the game.
news that turned out to be
So just a
incorrect later in the day.
disclaimer. We'll put disclaimer there. But
My worst of all time for the last 7 days. That is a real tough one. I think. I don't know. I'm really struggling with this one. I'm going to go for now. I'm going to give it to, and this is a controversial opinion, and I say this with no malice in my heart. I really don't mean this to hurt him. But I'm going to give it to Kevin Bartlett. It's KB.
KB!
To KB.
why have you given it to KB?
The cult hero down at Tigerland. Because, Christ almighty, will you shut up about the clash jumper?
Oh, actually,
young
no,
man?
I agree with KB on this one.
I think it's
I
just
agree
such
with
a.
KB on this one.
I see it as such a non-issue. You know, I do see
Well, it is
the. I can see wanting to play in the yellow sash, but mainly I just blame Richmond for this, for choosing such a horrible clash jumper to begin with. I mean, it is terrible, but if you don't want to wear it, then just don't design it in the first
I
place.
don't think there's, but I don't think it's not the point of it being terrible. It's the case of that Richmond want to wear their home jumper.
want to wear
I
their
don't think there's a
traditional
I don't
jumper,
think there's a
I
clash at all because
No.
people were showing footage last time Richmond wore their home jumper against Adelaide,
Hmm.
and not to go into kit making, but the yellow sash is actually very different to what that was, and it's actually a brighter sash. And it's like a canary yellow, and they wear white shorts. They can wear white shorts. Play in yellow socks or something. They should play in their home jumper.
Special,
There is no
special
clash.
guest KB on the program today.
There is
Nice
no
to see
clash. I don't think there's a clash at all. And and the other thing is that footage that they were showing on all the footy programs. That was a night game. This game's going to be played at 2:30, and it could be sunny for all I care.
Not if the AFL has anything to say about it.
What am I going to talk to Mother
Get a move to
Teresa?
7:40 by the end of the week.
Oh, yeah, policy on the run. How about that?
I've set you off. I'm very sorry.
No.
It's a Monday morning.
I think that well, at least because we can get that discussion point out of the way. Because it is a bit irrelevant. Because like as Damien Barrett said, this is the thing. One of the things I agree with him. You're playing for a grand final, so who cares?
That is a very good point.
But Kevin Bartlett, why would you want to throw shade at Kevin Bartlett? This is the most exciting week.
I know. I had to come up with someone,
Oh.
and it's just been at the forefront of my mind. You know, I think the Richmond fans, you're in a grand final. Kevin Bartlett. I mean, first grand final for 35 years. They can go out shirts versus skins for all they care. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. Really, the story here is Richmond making the grand final, and a wonderful story it is. So they can go out wearing whatever the hell they want. You know, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It
we'll
doesn't matter.
And we'll get to that.
They'll be
we'll get
right.
So we've got the jumper
They'll
out
be
of the way. But my worst.
Sorry, Kevin. I do love you.
So I'm going to look down the barrel here. There is a my worst of all time the last 7 days is a bloke named Hugh. Now, not many people know this. Now, this is related to sport because physiotherapy.
You're really shining a light on those little stories.
This
today.
is something
I
I
like
picked up last Friday. I had the privilege of going to the Monash University Physio Ball, and it was organised by a bunch of second years and whatever. And one of them was Hugh, and he was organising everything. He was organising the awards, and two things that he did was that first of all he grouped the awards for third year physios and fourth year physios together.
He didn't.
So he did.
Surely not.
He did, and also apparently they hiked up the prices. Now there was a bit of backlash. The fourth years were ripping into him, and any of a sudden he puts a post out there in the physios group or whatever, and he's basically back from it. So he just like and he couldn't deal with it, and everyone's gone on to the comment section and used his name as a bit of pun.
They've been ripping into him. Oh, and you're just jumping in the queue.
Making
a this poor
huge mistake and
a humongously bad mistake or something like that. Are we going like that?
Brodie's
Yeah, I know. I haven't had a lot of
but
comments
seriously,
about this.
but seriously, Hugh, toughen up.
Wow.
You're copying it from fourth years. Don't let them get the better of you. That is actually... And on the night, he got up there and everyone's going... I don't know if they were booing him or if they were going, you, or something like that.
Oh, poor young man. Holy moly.
But he just sort of flimsed about. Have a bit of strength about you, man. Oh, and the awards were rigged. They went to... They went to everybody. They went to... No, the first and second years. So what they did, which I don't think they should have done, is they announced the committee. So they now know who the committee for next year is.
Yeah.
But not only that, when they did the awards, pretty much everybody on that committee got the awards. How stupid is that? Anyway.
Getting fired up.
Hugh and Monash Physio, whoever's in charge of that board, you are the worst of all time in the last 7 days.
So if you and your girlfriend went to that ball, so a picture on Facebook, all dressed up, looking lovely.
Thank you.
If you and her wore the same colour, would you have to wear a clash suit?
Well, actually, no. But we were trying to match. But she was wearing... It's very hard to match with white. I don't have a white suit.
Yeah, well, that is a good point.
I was going to put maybe a white handkerchief.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But
anyway, moving on.
But we want to talk about Brodie, of course, football.
We'll move on from Hugh.
Footy. Let's talk some footy.
Absolutely massive week. We do have a couple of finals to review. I think we'll kick things off in Adelaide. Really one of the great stories of the past few years Adelaide have been, and we'll talk about this a little more when we get to the grand final preview. But Richmond and Adelaide, I think, are truly the best stories to come out of this year, and I'm really happy for both teams. But Adelaide were so impressive against Geelong, and if they bring that sort of game to the MCG on Saturday, they're going to be a really tough team to beat. They just ran them all over the park. It was one of those really... It was just a typical Adelaide performance from this season, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And they got off to a red-hot start. And that's been the key to, I reckon, any team winning a game, let alone being so successful, is that first 10 minutes, a side is on, what sort of game it's going to be. And I think the challenge for Richmond will be if they can match that intensity. And I think they can, particularly in a grand final.
They're very good with pressure, the Tigers. Yeah. But Adelaide were just so fantastic. And so that forward line, especially a Mitch McGovern down, was just fit and firing again. You had Eddie Betts kicking goals from the boundary. You had Tom Lynch who came up and kicked some. Josh Jenkins got 4. And, of course, Charlie Cameron kicked 5. It's just such a hard forward line to beat.
He played a really good game,
he was
Charlie
Cameron.
That is his standout game. That's his,
Absolutely.
I think that was his career best haul as well. And you talk about how Daniel Rioli had a really a clutch, game-changing game. I think Charlie Cameron was the difference for the Crows. But, I didn't see much of the game. I've seen some of the highlights, and obviously they went after Dangerfield. But I tell you two boys that they've been. I reckon they'll go as in sneaky. They'll poll them possibly in the top 5. Either Matt or Brad Crouch, the boys from Ballarat, they were simply phenomenal. Nearly 60 disposals between them. I mean, that was incredible.
And that's not just the story of the game. That's the story of the season. I mean, if you look coming into the whole year, they failed to get Bryce Gibbs in the trade period at the end of 2016, and you had a lot of people saying, well, Adelaide, they're one of those teams that are up there, but they haven't strengthened their midfield enough to really be able to contend, especially after losing Dangerfield the season before. And the Crouch brothers have stepped up to such an outstanding level, They've just really taken the game of AFL by the scruff of the neck and really changed it. They've been fantastic. They have been completely excellent, and I just can't see a weakness in Adelaide's team at the moment. They
Absolutely,
look
and
so
I think the really good thing for the Crouch boys is they've managed to. There was a question: is when Dangerfield left, who was going to step up? And you had Sloan was obviously a good player already, but basically, when Dangerfield left, it's basically produced 2 A grade midfielders in Matt and Brad Crouch.
And I reckon if you went and you asked every single Adelaide fan in the crowd out there, would you prefer to have Patrick Dangerfield out there or the Crouch brothers?
Oh, they'd be happy now.
One of them would take the Crouch brothers.
They'd be happy now. But also, the likes of Rory Laird, he played his 100th game for Adelaide and in the AFL, so well done to him. But
he was very good, actually, Rory Laird. He was racking them up.
I think 34 disposals.
Yeah, not bad.
And he was really good,
nice,
and I think
work.
he's been underspent. But then it comes down to the other things the national anthem. Everyone they stood with a bit of purpose. The Adelaide Crows. They've done it twice, and do you think they're using it to intimidate the opposition?
I don't know. Maybe they just like their own personal space. I just think they're doing it for a bit of fun, just for a bit of a laugh.
Geelong have never been, as Chris Scott would say, linkers.
The whole.
It seems pretty deliberate to me.
It just looks a little funny. Like
I think it's great though.
every time it happens, they look like, that whole Cristiano Ronaldo free kick stance, legs wide, arms wide. They just look a little bit funny. But hey, if it looks stupid but it works, it ain't stupid. And so far they've won every game. I'm not going to attribute it just yet to standard, and I'm not going to a little bit grumpy whenever they're doing the national anthem. But hey, I mean, I can't say that I was intimidated. But then again, I wasn't staring down the barrel of Taylor Walker's devilish eyes, staring into the depths of my
scary
soul.
man. Yes. I love Tex.
Me too. Man.
But I would just be interesting, just looking at it from the Geelong point of view. Do you think? I can't remember whether the chairman or CEO said that this was a success for Geelong this year, despite losing another prelim. Do you think Geelong had another good year?
With Geelong, I don't accept that. I don't accept saying this is a good year for Geelong, because if we take a look at the entirety of the Geelong side, you've got Patrick Dangerfield, who's in the prime of his career. Player like Tom Hawkins is in the prime of his career. You've got some of those, generals that have been there for a long time that are playing their last seasons. I know that happens to Geelong, but Tom Lonergan and Andrew Mackie.
Yep,
that's the foundation of their defence, essentially. Mackie's been there for so long, and Lonergan's one of the better fullbacks in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at least he has been for his career. I don't accept that a bad preliminary final loss to Adelaide is a success for Geelong this year, because I don't think it is. And there's some real question marks about what happens next for Geelong and where to go from here. Because
you think
it's not good enough. It would have been expected to play next week.
Yeah, and I think Geelong. I thought Geelong had a pretty good year. They had probably a couple of slip ups at the right time.
They had a decent year,
but I think it'd be interesting. You touch on Tom Lonergan and Andrew Mackie, obviously two key figures in the back line.
Mackie is an excellent player, very excellent player.
But that's the thing that they're going to have to figure, because all of a sudden, does Harry Taylor go back? And I suppose that changes Geelong's mindset in terms of its recruiting. They're going to have to draft a defender, and they're going to have to invest some time into him, and have Harry Taylor, Henderson, and Tui as their generals in the back line.
And they're good players.
Oh yeah, no, but
that's
not. But there's all of a sudden,
Mackie and Lonergan.
But there's all of a sudden a question of depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And if one of those players goes down with injury, you've suddenly got a real problem. And the other problem as well for Geelong is, according to the early reports, and I'll attribute it because last week I didn't, and I actually got it wrong when talking about Ken Hinkley. But it was Steve-O said in the Channel 7 broadcast, they reckon Gary Ablett's a done deal. They reckon it's signed and done and agreed to, and everything.
So is Brandon Matera. Everyone's leaving the Gold Coast.
Yeah, Matera.
Going to go home. Done a medical.
Apparently. So we've got Ablett, who's out the door. So Geelong will have to give up something for him, and would they be better off putting those picks in other places?
I think the Gold Coast should be realistic, and they're not going to get much for Ablett. Ablett's at the end of his career.
They'll get something for him, though, and you'd argue that Geelong giving anything for him is wasted value.
Why would you want... I wouldn't give more than a third pick.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, a third pick, Geelong's third pick for Ablett. I think
it's going to be really interesting next year for Geelong to see how they do and where they go, because... If making a preliminary final is a success to them for this year, then they have to improve on this for next year. They absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can see them improving for next year. I can't really see them going up. I don't think Dangerfield has the next level to his game. I think he's already as good as he is.
He's at the top of his game.
He's at the top of his game. He's one of the best players in the league. But I don't see any players that can really jump up to the next level.
There's so much that Dangerfield and Selwood can do, and I agree. And I think there could be a demise for Geelong, because you think, is the premiership window now over for Geelong?
Look, I think next year they can make a real run at it, but I don't know whether they've got the.
They could drop out of the 8.
You think they can drop out of the 8? I don't think they'll
drop
out of the 8.
We'll go into a more in-depth season review once we see the list.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of water to go on the bridge. Because like last trade period, like anything can happen, but. Anyway,
the other thing as well is Chris Scott, after his grand final win in his first season, which of course was a quite fantastic feat, hasn't actually been all that impressive in finals. He's lost a great many of them. And the ones that he's won were, Isaac Smith after the siren, they've been quite close. They could have gone either way. Obviously, I'm not saying boot Chris Scott out, but there's a real question mark there about
Geelong obviously... Chris Scott inherited a side that was still in that premiership window. Still very good. You had Guns that was still playing for that team. But anyway, I think that's enough about Geelong. But I think overall, Adelaide deservedly will go in as favourites, but it'll be an intense, hostile environment at the MCG because the Tiggies are there. The Tigers are playing in the finals, the grand final. Oh,
God
your
help
brother
us.
his brother is a Richmond supporter. And
Quite literally, God help us. My brother came charging through the door, all guns blazing after his big preliminary final
Had a
win.
couple of-
Fingers up in the air, ready to go.
Had a couple of the premiership. What was it?
He had the premiership
Mark
posters up,
cartoons,
ready
yep.
to go. Maybe jumping the gun a little bit on that
Yes.
one.
Don't
But-
jump to conclusions.
I mean, let's not take anything away from the Tigers, and I do want to give credit especially to Damien Hardwick, because if you take a look at this on paper, and if you told me at the start of the year that this was a grand final playing list, I wouldn't have believed you. He has coached that team excellently this year. Their pressure has just been second to none. They've been fantastic, and their tackling pressure, especially on the weekend against GWS, was excellent. They really put teams under the pump.
Absolutely.
Damien Hardwick, I have strong feelings about Damien Hardwick. I think he's an excellent coach. He really gets the best out of his players, I think, and I think
he has certainly this year.
he definitely has got the best out of his players this year. I know there's been question marks in the past, obviously, about not winning a final. It's taken him a little bit of time
The past
to get
doesn't
here.
matter now; they're in a grand final. But I think that with Damien Hardwick, also a fair bit of credit has to go to Peggy O'Neill, the president, and obviously the CEO, Brendan Gale, because they've had a look at it. They had that rogue group or whatever.
Yeah, let's just talk about that for a minute.
Well, that's stupid, but that they're
focus on footy group.
I don't think we need
Ridiculous.
to talk about them because they're irrelevant now.
They are, well, that's-
the fact is that Brendan Gale made a lot of administrative changes, making I reckon bold calls and getting in releasing Mark Williams and I think it was Brendan Lade. I think was also at. Matthew Lade, I forgot. But then bringing Justin Lepich back in, bringing Neil Baum,
yeah.
and obviously Nank the Tank, Prestia, and Caddy.
Oh, their recruits this season have played
And
excellently.
so
They've recruited
I think-
very well.
So I think that the football department is really strong, and they made a VFL grand final, which we'll touch on a bit later.
Very
But
unlucky to
they
lose
have
as well.
they have set up a really good system this
Yeah.
year, and I think it's because of that they've just acknowledged. I think someone said it like Hardwick has said, right. Okay, I own that things need to change. He's starting to listen to a few people a bit more. So it's change has happened, and it's worked really well for Richmond. And I suppose maybe touching just like 5 seconds on Collingwood, I think that's what Collingwood needed to do. And I think Buckley's
I agree with you, absolutely.
because Buckley and Hardwick are pretty close, and I think Buckley will learn a lot of lessons from Hardwick and Richmond from this year. But in terms of the actual game, you're right. Richmond were manic. They were all over the Giants, but it was a good game in the first quarter. The Giants certainly, they hit the lead a bit early, and was it Himmelberg?
Yes.
Playing in for Jeremy Cameron, kicked a couple of goals early.
Yeah, no,
so
he's done a really good job filling in for Jeremy Cameron because those are big shoes to fill. And I mean, it's a real what if season for GWS now that they're out, especially because you had Mumford and Cameron go down. They've been so riddled with injuries throughout the year.
Yeah.
It's been really tough for them.
Considering that, do you think it was still a failure, given that they were expected to play in the grand final?
I think Geelong losing a prelim final is more of a failure than GWS. I think I've ripped into GWS before, and I think that now that their season is over, now that it's all done and dusted, you take a moment and you sit back and you go, right, these kids are still 23.
Oh yeah,
They'll
be at their peak in next
absolutely.
year.
These kids are still 23, and they're excellent as is. They've had by their own extremely lofty standards, a year that's been good but not great.
Yeah.
They'll be very disappointed to lose their second prelim final in a row. It's going to hurt a lot. But I think with such a young group of players, it's a real learning experience. I think that if you come out and you lose 2 prelim finals in a row, that's a heartbreak that is just incomparable. And I'm going to say pretty confidently they'll get there next season.
Yeah,
and
I
they're
would
going to
say
be
so too.
hell-bent on making sure they don't feel this pain again. Because they'll be hurting the Giants, and they'll be hurting badly.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be a few teams that will make the jump next year, and GWS will have to make the grand final. I think they need to demonstrate that investment because, I mean, like the Giants have been pretty good. And like you say, with those injuries, but I think they just probably. I think it was maybe the case that the Tigers were just too good, and I think, and we'll touch on him now. Dustin Martin obviously was fantastic, and he'll win the Brownlow tonight. We'll get into that as well. Daniel Ollie, as we said, as we said off the top of the program, he was fantastic. And just, again, those players that really carried the team. But another player who was a talking point from that game, and we'll touch on the game first before we get to the incident. But Trent Cotchin, he lifted Richmond. He did things. His attack on the football
He was
and the play was just outstanding. And
Excellent.
I reckon he was best on ground in that game, and he'll get the votes. I think they've got the Gary Ayres medal, or the Ayres medal, whatever that is, for the best player in the finals. I think he'll poll the full votes, and I think he'll be in with a
Absolutely
with a good
deserved. He got them into a grand final. That
But
was
let's talk about the incident, Brodie.
Can I take a moment? Can I take a moment?
You can take a moment. This is our podcast. This is an untitled Matt and Brodie podcast.
Look,
yet untitled.
Firstly, we'll start off from Trent Cotchin's angle. If the unthinkable happens and he gets ruled out for next week's grand final,
I don't think it's completely
or
unthinkable.
for this week's grand final. Well, unthinkable in the sense that it's devastating, really, for him and the club. Trent Cotchin can sleep at night and rest well knowing that his performance against GWS brought Richmond to that grand final. And if he can't play this week on Saturday, then he's had his grand final performance already. He was outstanding as a leader and as a player against GWS. He was fantastic. His attack on the football was relentless. His rebound, he was just an excellent. It's hard to put into words. It was fantastic. Yeah. Well, I've said it enough, but he was really outstanding, and he can hold his head high and know that even if he doesn't play this weekend, that my contribution brought my team to a grand final, and he should be extremely proud of himself.
I don't think you would like that, because obviously
I understand.
Do you think he should be playing?
And we'll move on to this.
Do you think he should be playing?
I absolutely think he should be playing, and this is why I do understand that the 3 fines equals you get a suspension, and it doesn't have to be all that much in it for him to get a fine. But if you have to watch an incident 1,000 times over from 1,000 different angles, going frame by frame, taking little bits from this one and little bits from this one, putting them together, debating, scrutinizing it, just arguing over it for hours on end, looking at precedent. It's like at a certain point you have to realize, how do we get to this point? How are we looking at the captain of a football club? And I know that him being the captain and it being the grand final doesn't have a bearing on it. I know, I understand that. But just from the entire MRP point of view, if it's so much thinking goes behind it for an incident that is not intentional, he didn't intentionally try and catch him in the head. Where do we draw the line? Why are we arguing that he should get suspended for something like this?
Because there's a lot of, again, how they've been adjudicating these things this year is obviously it's been more focused on. This is why there've been so many rule changes. They've been focusing on the outcome and the end result. And obviously this has resulted in a delayed concussion. And then, you had, rule changes a couple of years ago when you had, rules brought in to protect people's knees. Rather than... And I'm on the fence on this, because I think Cotchin... I don't think Cotchin should get fined or suspended, because it was a football act... And he was going for the football, and he won the contest. He was more committed to the contest than Dylan Shield. And you can see Dylan Shield had his hands out there. He didn't really get the ball. He didn't beeline the footy, and he didn't get it. And so, part of the question has to go back to how much did Dylan Shield contribute to that incident. He should have won the football first. But the fact is that Cotchin got there, won the footy, and then he was tackled by Scully after. Boo, Scully. Anyway, but... The thing that makes it a finable offence is that Dermot Brereton on Fox Footy made the point very correctly, is that if you look at even in real time, you can tell that Cotchin chose to tuck the arm in, and that's going for a bump.
Yeah.
And obviously he went lower, he went under the head, and my gut feeling is that he'll get off. They'll thrown out, because there is so much grey with the MRP.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to get Cotchin off. Having said that, if he misses, he gets a fine and gets suspended. I'm not surprised. And I think it would be, reasonable in the sense that during the year, he shouldn't have punched Lachie Neale in the jaw, and he shouldn't have thrown.
No, absolutely.
Shouldn't have thrown.
And that'll be keeping him up at night, because he absolutely shouldn't have done those. But I think if we look at this act on its merits, I'm sick of the AFL punishing players for commitment to the football. I understand.
And that's where I think he should get off.
There's a lot of fear around concussions, and I completely understand that, because it's a serious issue. But I'd rather they put every player in helmets than punish them for going
Exactly.
too hard at the football. This is what they're taught to do.
This is what the game is about, Brodie.
If I had
We're losing our
withdrawn
game.
from the football in Auskick, I would have been told off. And it's like now you're telling players at an AFL level, just be careful of the head. And I do understand being careful of the head. I do. But this is a contact sport, and it's just unavoidable.
There's
Put all
going to
players
be-
in helmets if it's that much of a
There's
worry,
going to
honestly.
be there's going to be
it's just-
repercussions of a contact sport, absolutely. And I just think it's so ridiculous that we have to have this discussion. But having said that, it is the way it is now.
Yeah.
And you know, and I mean, we can joke about the clash jumper all we like, but there is a problem. I think with the AFL. There is a lack of consistency.
Absolutely.
I think at the end of the year they need to have a review. I think they need to think about the rules and how it's been adjudicated, and then have an umpires forum, so that at not just the AFL level, because I've played VAFA football. A lot of people watching have played it and have seen the umpiring has been so inconsistent. Have an umpires forum, and for goodness sake, stick to those rules for the year, so you know how it's going to be adjudicated throughout. Not have these for every month we're going to focus on contact below the knees, or we're going to focus on even the most minute deliberate out of bounds on the full. I mean, just be consistent for the whole year. I think that's what we're all asking for.
Absolutely. And I mean, I understand the anger, because if there's a lot of stress, and there's a lot of stress about something that obviously the news isn't out as of the time of this recording. It will be.
Absolutely.
By the time we put it out, disclaimer. But I mean, I like to try and keep things light and happy in this podcast, but it will be a genuine football tragedy if the captain of a football club misses a grand final due to a fine technicality and a 1-week suspension.
Yeah.
It'll be horrible. And it will, the game's the worse off without Trent Cotchin playing in a grand final, because we've had such an uncompetitive final series so far.
Oh, yeah.
It would be a real shame if he missed out, because that's just going to affect the competitiveness of that game, because it will be a lot better if Trent Cotchin is playing, and it will be a lot closer.
Yeah.
Personally, my view, I look at that incident, I say he's going for the football, he won the football, he had more commitment than Dylan Shield. It's horrible that Dylan Shield got concussed, obviously. He was ruled out for the rest of the game. That sucks.
Happens in football.
It happens in football.
We'll talk about other incidents that, there was an incident earlier in the year. I was there, Melbourne and Sydney at the MCG, where Zach Jones bumped Mitch Hannon. He got a bit dazed, and Zach Jones got off.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. We need a match review panel review, you know?
Yeah.
Because there has been just wild inconsistencies throughout the year, and I think that it's time to take a look at the whole process and really evaluate the point that we've gotten to.
It is time for change, absolutely.
But hey, I mean, my gut feeling tells me that he's going to cop a week, and I don't want him to, but that's just what my gut tells me, and hopefully I'm wrong.
We'll wait and see. We'll have to wait and see, and you know,
asterisks on this whole conversation.
And interesting that if everything that goes the way that Eddie Maguire sees it, could be in the Supreme Court. How big that would be?
The Supreme Court? I didn't hear that.
That's hyperbole.
That's probably a big call. Supreme Court's probably got bigger fish to fry.
No, the High Court has bigger things to fry.
Let's take it to the High Court.
Oh, jeez.
Let's do it.
No.
This is a constitutional violation.
They've got to get through.
Will not stand for it.
They've got to get through citizenship and all that. Yeah. But anyway, that will play out. But let's get back to the football, and I suppose we should touch on and have a look at the grand final. This is shaping up, as we said. Adelaide haven't played in a grand final in nearly 20 years, and you now have Richmond who are playing their first grand final about.
It's 35 years.
They have not. I was actually thinking about this. Something came up on the VFL coverage that Richmond haven't played in an AFL grand final, so that would make them, GWS and Gold Coast, the only teams in the AFL that have not played in an AFL grand final.
Yeah, and I'm really happy for them. They deserve to be there. They've worked so hard. I do think that these are the two best stories from the year, with the Richmond Tigers playing above themselves and Adelaide Crows bouncing back from just a horror couple of years. Hang on, before we get going, I want to throw out a stat. You know I do like my stats.
Oh, here we go.
My good stats. You may have heard this one. It's popped up on Twitter a couple of times. I'll give the credit to Fox Footy. I think brought it up first. This is the second time in AFL history that all players on the field will be playing in their first grand final. The other time was in 1898, the very first grand final.
Do you think that would make it...
It's a good stat,
That is a very good stat. Do you think it would make it for a good game? Or do you think it would make it for a very, very scrappy quarter?
Look, I hope it's a good game. I really do. But I mean, I think first, I just want to take a look at the two stories. We'll start with Richmond because I do think Adelaide's a better story. You know, the Tigers really playing above themselves the entire year. Their tenacity, their effort for their coach and for each other has been fantastic. And they've made their first grand final since 1982. And there's such an excitement around the Tigers supporters. It's pretty hard not to feel happy for them, I feel. They've struggled.
I have a few friends that have been diehard Richmond supporters.
My younger brother is so excited. He's never seen Richmond win a final in his lifetime. And now we're lining up for tickets at 3 a.m. in the bloody morning to get into the ground on the last Saturday of September. There's a real excitement around, and I'm happy for them that it's finally worked out. I mean, the Channel 7 telecast, you see Richo screaming his lungs out in excitement. There's a real happiness around the Tigers.
I saw a bit of footage of that, of Richo on Channel 7, and I think it was in the post game. Did you see him? He was just, he was not even sitting
biggest
in his chair.
shit-eating grin on his face you would ever see in your entire life. He was delighted with himself.
The thing about a great player, his dad played in the grand final, and I feel sorry for Richmond legends of that club who didn't get to play.
And there were plenty that missed out over the past 35 years, but this current crop of talent has worked so hard. They deserve to be there on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of excitement around Richmond at the moment, and you can't blame them. And boy, oh boy, if they win on the weekend, it's going to be pandemonium. Evacuate the city of Melbourne for a month.
I think I'll be in Bendigo for most of the...
into the bomb shelters, everyone, and don't let yourselves out until it's safe.
That'd be great.
Yeah, well, you better... I don't know if Bendigo's far enough. You might want to get yourself to North Korea. You find yourself safer than you would around the Tiger Army if they win on Saturday.
I'd be safer in New Zealand at the moment. New Zealand's a safe place, isn't it?
New Zealand's a lovely place.
The only thing that's not safe about it is the earthquakes.
Well, let's hope. But I commend Richmond for being there.
But then the Adelaide Crows, of course, and like so much of this story has been with the Adelaide Crows. The part of the story I really like. Obviously, the Dangerfield's a big part of it. They went in. They had to sack the coach because of Dangerfield in Brenton Sanderson. But I mean, Phil Walsh is obviously a huge part of this story. And
absolutely.
We'll never know. We'll never know where Adelaide would have been with Phil Walsh. It was such a tragic point in time. But what Adelaide have been able to do on the back of that has just been able to galvanise. Become so strong as a football club and get a strong football person in Don Pike. I think Don Pike, he just handles the heat better. I think there's a lot of hyperbole about our coaches conducting themselves. A lot of this is played out in the media. The media exaggerates this a fair bit, but I think Don Pike, you can tell that he doesn't buy into that. He actually is calm. You tell Buckley tries to be calm, but Buckley, but there's a difference.
Don Pike's a cool head, and he'll be a deserving premiership coach if they get up.
Yeah.
It's a great story, Adelaide. I feel that the Phil Walsh thing is, with no hyperbole or exaggeration, probably the worst thing that's ever happened to a football club, to have your coach murdered in the middle of a season. And it was horrible, and it was just the worst thing. It was horrible. And the way in which they conducted themselves in the wake of that horrible tragedy, and then the years that followed, obviously they had other problems as well with their best player obviously leaving them. The ways in which they bounced back, in which their young players stood up, in which particular credit to Taylor Walker stood up as a captain and has been one of the outstanding leaders in AFL.
Phil Walsh appointed Tex Walker as captain. That was
what a good
big
appointment
call.
that was.
A lot of people, I love the Texan. I was actually quite happy that at the time there's a tweet there. I might pop that on the screen when I edit this.
So
there we go. There it is. But yes, that was. I think Tex Walker has been sensational. But
no clubs conducted themselves better in the past 2.5 years than Adelaide, and they deserve to be here. They deserve to win. They've played so well, and a lot of credit goes to Phil Walsh for putting those foundations in place. I think personally, they had a great list at the time, and I think that he'd be here on the last Saturday of September if things didn't go the way they did. But Don Pike coming in has been excellent. Also want to give credit as well, that whole horrible, dark period of time for the Adelaide Crows. I think it was Scott Camberelli who came in and was the interim coach in the
And he's
time
still there
being,
now,
and
so
he's
that's
still
good.
there now. I think
Yeah.
that he's a huge part of that as well. I want to give credit to Scott Camberelli, former Essendon man, of course.
Of course.
A lot of love for him.
Got to put an Essendon twist on the story.
The
as well.
whole system at Adelaide has bounced back so phenomenally from such a horrible, dark, awful time at the club. So I think it's the best story to come out of the year,
Yeah,
past
absolutely. And
little while, and I.
But the thing that's been most,
this.
the
They
most thing,
deserve
the thing that's been most impressive about Adelaide has just been the way that they played the football. There is very little flaws to Adelaide. I mean, the only flaw I would say is that at times they've been a bit handball happy, but that's how the way they play.
Yeah.
And they obviously had a
And
kick
they've got
in
the
there.
skills as well to be handball happy. The Crouch
Yeah.
brothers and Rory Sloane are
Yeah.
very slick players.
Absolutely.
And
But
they're not going to make a lot of mistakes.
And
so
the
you
other
can afford to play
the other thing
like
I feel
that.
sorry for is obviously Brodie Smith, who fantastic off halfback. He did his ACL in the qualifying final. I mean, that's just hard luck. And Mitch McGovern, he might miss. And so, touch wood. So hopefully he can get back into the team. But that also means...
One of my mates ran into Mitch McGovern in the car park and he told him he was playing. So take that for what you will.
Oh, but it's a grand final. Everyone says they're playing. Joel Selwood would have a broken leg and his bone, his fibula or whatever, sticking out, and he says he's playing. Everyone gets up for a grand final, but I think...
You have your head cut off. You can be decapitated.
I think Mitch McGovern will play too, but you feel sorry for like Andy Otten, who,
he was really good.
He was really good, and he's a depth player.
He's been a great utility player for Adelaide. Like whenever they've needed to fill a gap, he's always come in and done a good job.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's done his bit for the side, and it's a real great chat. I wish they would do the premiership medallions like they do in the Premier League and like they do in the
to
NPS.
everyone who made a contribution.
Well,
during the season.
the squad, because I think you have to, given how tight the season was, everyone that played for the Adelaide Crows or for Richmond had a significant role, and it'd be the same as last year. Bob Murphy was so inspirational in that first patch before they played that penultimate game against Hawthorn, and then the last 30 seconds he does his ACL and his season is done when it was all on the line. I mean, I reckon that's what they should do with the AFL.
It's a very good point to make, and I think that you get both sides. But people saying, well, they didn't play on the day, they weren't a grand final winner, they don't deserve to have a grand final medal. You get the other side saying, well, they contributed. I mean, if Richmond win and Trent Cotchin doesn't get to play, you can absolutely say that he brought them to the grand final almost single-handedly with his performance. There's a lot of I see both sides, and it's a real tough one. But
I mean, but then there's
always
also
hard luck stories.
There's also the other flip of the coin. Like if you look at Leicester, for example, Mark Schwarzer didn't play a game, but he got a Premier League medallion with Leicester.
Mark Schwarzer stat. Brodie's stat time again.
Here we
to
go.
make this a segment.
Mark
Mark Schwarzer, I believe, is the only Premier League player in history to win 2 consecutive titles with 2 different teams without playing a single game.
Only an Australian can achieve those awards.
One of the great players in Australian history, Mark Schwarzer, by the way.
But
I'm a big Schwartz fan. But
anyway, sorry to the Adelaide Crows fans. We'll get back to the Crows. But you think about the forward line. We know the forward line. Betts, Walker, Jenkins, McGovern when he's playing.
So much. And that,
Lynch.
I mean, obviously, Richmond's defence...
they're going to be
led by
tested.
Alex Rance. They're going to be really tested, but I think they've got quite a quality defence.
But this is when Asprey, Vlosten, Grimes, and there's another Richmond defender off.
Alex Rance.
No, we've talked about Rance, but I was just saying the other ones as well because there's other defenders than just Rance.
Yeah.
But like I'm just going back to Adelaide. There's the forward line we're talking about. The midfield's crazy. The Crouch brothers, Sloane, obviously Sauce Jacobs in the ruck. Very important as well. But you'll go back to their defence. I mean, Daniel Talia, he's all Australian. Gun. Obviously, Brodie Smith, he won't be playing. But, Rory Laird coming off halfback. Hardingham, I think Hardingham or something. He's underrated, I think. He's not your in and out star, but he's been so solid in the back line. And of course, the two, Jake Lever and Jake Kelly.
Yeah, the big
they've been particularly. Kelly's because
he was very good on the weekend.
But there's all this hype about Lever
moving to Melbourne.
But we'll get to that after the grand final. Hibberd was on Future Stars. He'd be looking forward to playing with Lever, hopefully. But anyway, Kelly's one of those players that I don't talk about often, but that's because they're so good. I think Adelaide.
Well-oiled machine, aren't they, Adelaide?
Yeah, and of course, the other forward was Charlie Cameron, who plays in the midfield. Gets his clutch possessions in the midfield and kicks 5 goals. They are just.
That's a real.
You think about on that pure basis. You compare the Richmond side to the Adelaide side. You think that Adelaide, when you rifle the names off, they're favourites, and I think they're deservedly favourites. I think Adelaide will be too good.
Yeah, and we'll move into our predictions pretty soon. But I'm inclined to agree. I think that if Richmond are to win, their defence is really going to have to step up and play the game of their lives. They're going to have to play absolutely out of their skins and really constrict the Adelaide forward line. There's a lot of times that Adelaide, they just manage to move the ball so well off half-back, and they find themselves with 2 or 3 players open in space in the forward 50. They can handball it and walk it over the goal line, essentially. They're going to have to be really on their game, make sure they keep their defensive shape well. And I think that the Richmond defence are up to it. I think they've got a lot of quality there. Obviously, we're talking about Rance. Grimes is a very good player. Asprey's a very good player. And the case that he doesn't get suspended for a slight little nudge that may have just slipped.
It was a
touch too high.
Won the football.
But they've got some real talent there, and I think they can do it. Whether I think they will do it is another thing. But I think that we should discuss that by moving into our predictions. Who wins? How much? Who's lifting the Premiership Cup? Matthew Evans?
We'll actually make a few because we'll throw Norm Smith in there.
That's a good point.
I'm tipping Adelaide, and they'll win by within a couple of goals. Because I reckon it will either be right down to the wire or it will be a blowout. I think Adelaide by 2 goals. I think the game will be won. It will break open in around the end of the third, start of the fourth quarter. So I reckon that's when the game will break up. And I think the Norm Smith medalist will be Matt Crouch.
Matt Crouch, very fair. I see what you mean about the game breaking open towards the end, but I do want to give Richmond credit because they've actually finished games extremely strongly in this final series. They did against Geelong and they did against GWS as well.
I don't think it necessarily will break in Adelaide's favour. What I'm saying is that the game itself will break up. I reckon it will be maybe a 2-goal, maybe a 4-goal total first quarter, so 2 goals each, and much the same for the first half. So it will be a very tense because none of them have played in a grand final. I'm just thinking that it will be a frantic. Apparently, there's going to be a bit of wind about. Kind of weather predictions now. Early in the week, it's freaking Monday. Who knows what it's going to be like? North Korea could set off a nuke, and then it would be. Don't do that, North Korea, please. Don't. But seriously,
just play the grand final.
It will be. It will. Talk about. There's your neutral venue. Get the home ground. But I think it will be frantic in the first half, and they'll go to the halftime break, have a sigh of relief. Both sides will do pretty much the same, and then something will happen. Something will just, whether it's Tex Walker just says, right, I'm going to line you up. I'm going to line Rance up, going back with a flight. Put a suspension on the line for next season. Yeah, make a big statement. Yeah, something like that could happen. Make everything interesting.
It will be interesting.
What about your prediction, Brodie?
I think it will be an interesting game. My heart tells me Richmond, and
Richmond.
My heart tells me that it will be that it will be a close game because we've been so devoid of them in this final series by one excellent game. But here's the thing, Matthew, you don't tip with your heart because my head says Adelaide. They've been so good throughout the entirety of the year, bar just a couple of slip-ups. They've been so good in the final series. If they play like they did against Geelong in the prelim, they're going to be unbeatable. I do feel like it'll be a large margin, but for the sake of wanting it to be close, I'll say that they're going to win by a couple of goals as well.
So Adelaide by a couple of goals.
So yeah, I'm going to go with the Crows, and it will be a really nice story if they do get up, and they're going to absolutely deserve it for not just this season, but the past couple of seasons. They've been fantastic. And for the Norm Smith, I'm going to go with one of my favourite players in the AFL, and I don't think you'll find too many people who wouldn't say he's one of their favourite players in the AFL. And that's Eddie Betts.
Ooh, Eddie.
I think he'll be a real live wire, and I think he will snag a few excellent goals and really get Adelaide over the line. I think he's a great player. I think he's been waiting for this occasion for a long time. He was very emotional after the prelim on Friday night, and I think that he'll play a big role and get the nod for the Norm Smith medal. I certainly hope he will. So I think the Crows will get up. But it should be a good game.
It's been a fantastic footy discussion. We love footy, don't we? And it's going to be an exciting grand final. Obviously, we'll have the festivities of the week. We'll have, working backwards, we'll have the longest kick on Fox Footy.
I'm going to be going to the
Dustin Fletcher is in that.
Is he actually?
Yeah, announced it last night. So
Like
he's
that.
in it. Jaden Hunt, Melbourne. I'm looking forward to seeing Jaden Hunt.
I'm heading to the grand final parade with an Adelaide supporter and a Richmond supporter either side of me.
There you go. Brodie Calvin, the
I'm gonna have
human barrier.
to. Yeah, I know.
You're one of those concrete bollards.
Don't
that are
argue to both
putting around
sides. The old
Melbourne.
Dustin Martin, yeah.
Yeah. One of those things.
keep them apart, but should be a nice day. I think the Richmond fans are going to be out in force for the grand final parade. I think it'll be a nice day. I like the grand final parade because it's a day that both fans can get together and nothing can really go that wrong. Whereas on Saturday, it's going to go pretty wrong for one of those sides.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
grand final parade's always a nice time, and Melbourne's going to be electric over the next week. It's going to be exciting, especially because we've got a big event on tonight.
The Brownlow Medal. Okay, the Brownlow Medal, obviously, very big, very exciting. We're going to build it up, but we're going to first of all go straight to the predictions. The biggest build-up to the Brownlow preview anybody ever's done. Who's going to win it, Brodie?
Dustin Martin. Probably.
Yeah, Dustin Martin. I think that's it. We don't need to say more about the Brownlow. It's Dusty's to lose.
Yeah, he's been excellent this season. He's really
Like even if Dangerfield will be the next, but he's not going to win it because he's suspended.
I think that Martin will poll plenty more votes than Dangerfield as well.
Oh, what do you reckon's gonna? What do you reckon's more certain to happen? Channel 7's production team stuffing the Brownlow up. And doing an interview saying, "Oh, I think you might have won it."
Oh, look
Dusty.
at that Bruce.
Oh, I think you might have.
Destination.
Oh, delicious. Oh, yeah. But I reckon they'll screw it up. If Mick Malloy does that stupid comedy sketch that they did a couple of years ago,
That was a bomb. That was a bomb.
That was a bomb. They'll do a front bar thing. Just for goodness sake, I'm sounding like Sam Newman. For goodness sake. But anyway, either that's going to happen, or there's going to be this hoo-ha about, Dangerfield winning it and all the rest of it. Oh, we should scrap, the fairest element of it. Oh, I'm get sick and tired of people.
It won't matter because I think Dustin Martin's going to pull more votes and I think he's going to win.
True.
So he's been fantastic this year and he
Righto.
deserves it. And I'm very much looking forward to Bruce McAvaney trying to get a word out of him in the post-medal presentation ceremony.
Actually, that's
a shy young man.
Yeah, he is. And that's good. I think he obviously doesn't buy into the media. That's good. I think that's great. You don't have to be this personality that the media wants.
I'm looking forward to, because Bruce McAvaney has not much an idea of personal space, whether Dustin Martin's instincts might just kick in. He'll go with the old.
Don't argue.
Can we see
that? Can we see that a live moment? It'll be
forward to
the
it.
first time any professional athlete has attacked a commentator since Michael Cole went rogue with that anonymous stupid general manager.
Anyway, I think it's Dusty's to lose, and I think it'll be
Dusty's got it.
Good night for the Tigers.
Dusty's in the bag. He's
a deserved winner.
I would think so too.
Absolute champion, Dustin Martin is.
Do you think? How long do you think his speech will go for?
Are we taking bets on this? I reckon Bruce can squeeze. Are we talking the interview or just the speech?
Yeah, I reckon. Well, maybe each answer that Bruce.
I'm gonna give the speech a minute and a half. I don't give it much time.
I'm gonna give it a minute.
I'm gonna give the interview 7. I reckon Bruce can squeeze 7. They tend to drag that out.
I
think 5 went on for about 20.
Well, because 5 gives a bit. But Dustin's gonna give anything. Oh, for goodness sake!
Big game this weekend. How are you feeling? Oh yeah, pretty good.
Oh yeah. Where's that brand? Where's that Sam Newman footage from the footage show? Where's the pinch this from the footage show?
We gotta.
Anyway,
I think that we'll do a drinking game. Anytime someone says
that would be
the boys in a speech.
The boys. The boys.
Thinking about not really thinking about the Brownlow, any of that sort of thing. Any of those
it was like
just get hammered.
Anyone from the Adelaide Crows or from Richmond saying, "Oh, we're on the waters tonight." Oh, that's probably another one.
Anyway, Dusty's to lose. I think that's all we need to say about the Brownlow medal. Should be a nice night.
Yeah, should be a nice night. And we did touch on the start of the program. We did talk about it a little bit. The VFLW Grand Final, the VFL Grand Final, and the TAP Cup Grand Final. I mean, Darebin defeated Diamond Creek. Darebin are an incredible team. They're winning all the premierships.
That's a 5-peat.
Yeah, that is incredible. And
1,
I think
2, 3,
there's
4,
been a fair
5.
bit of
Once they caught an uncompetitive women's football league live.
They were talking about like it being crazy and like how all the best players are going to that team. But
They got Daisy Pearce, Katie Brett, and Darcy Vesio, who obviously wasn't playing.
they've got
some guns,
most of the AFLW stars in there. But I suppose that is an easy one there.
I just as well. I probably should have given my greatest of all time for the last 7 days too, but I want to touch on a young lady, 18 years old, by the name of Chloe Malloy. Chloe Malloy, playing for Diamond Creek, was fighting a separated shoulder the entire game.
Oh, yes.
Essentially running with her shoulder by her side, carrying the ball with one hand.
That was going.
She obviously was in extreme discomfort, and she pushed through what must have been horrific pain for the sake of her team. That's absolutely a championship, man. Those ladies are tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't want to mess with them. And Darabin were deserved winners. That
absolutely,
was a fantastic
indeed.
game. The next game they played that day, the VFL Grand Final, was an excellent game.
And it went down to the wire. Everyone was barracking for the Borough, and we could talk about various moments in the game, and it was a real game of momentum shifts and whatnot. But like it all came down was it Ben Lennon having a shot from. Kicking it from 55. It was going to be tough. He made
the distance.
It was just in your accurate. He's obviously putting a lot into that kick, but it was good to hear a grand old flag playing in a grand final. It was great. And but no, I mean, just talking about Port Melbourne, where they were earlier in the year, battling to stay alive. They were pretty much close to bankrupt. The round one, all their players didn't get paid. They volunteered for that. And Gary Ayres and the coaching panels all took a pay cut, and they've survived. They've won the grand final. Hopefully, because I think the Port Melbourne Football Club, in terms of the VFL, just need to be. I mean, given that we're seeing all these standalone clubs,
they're a staple of VFL history, and I think it's a really big win for standalone clubs. I'm doing a story for uni at the moment on the Franks and Dolphins, trying to get my interviews. Haven't organised any yet, just between you and me, but we'll keep that on the DL. If anyone's listening, please email me back.
Don't send this to the lecturer. This is feature writing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Do not get in contact with Colin McKinnon.
Anyway, regardless, it's a big win for standalone clubs, and I think the VFL's better off with the standalone clubs around. Congratulations to Port Melbourne on a great performance and a big win. My brother, the Richmond fan, was watching the game, was distraught, devastated, upset after the lost. He went down to the wire, and I thought, my God, if he's like this now, I do not want to know what things are going to be like on Saturday night. It's going to be a tense night in the Cowboy household, and please send your prayers and well wishes to me if things do not go well for the Tigers.
And all any other Richmond supporters as well. But and of course there was another. I couldn't believe it. In two consecutive
kicks.
We had the TAC Cup Grand Final between the Geelong Falcons and the Sandringham Dragons, and Joel Armady had an opportunity to kick the winning goal after the siren about 20 metres out, 15 metres out probably, and he missed. And it was devastating. But there's so much talent on display there, and it was good to see the Geelong Falcons winning their first TAC Cup premierships, I think, since 2002. And there were a few famous names in there, obviously.
There's a little Brownless running around, I believe,
Oscar Brownless. He'll be father of son next year. Not this year,
for Geelong as well, I did notice the brother of a certain young Essendon man, Darcy Parish, making his way around. So,
absolutely.
As you know, always got to make it about
and
Essendon.
I think Paddy McCartan's brother was playing as well.
Very, very true. I did hear that as well.
But there's a few Sandy Dragons boys that I know. Alfie Yarnstrom, he had a couple of shots at goal. He missed a couple, but he kicked a few. Seb Williams could be another player to watch. Nathan Murphy, the cricketer, he's chosen footy, I think. So hopefully he can play. There's a lot of star Dragons in there. Obviously the Brayshaws as well, Hamish and I think I thought he's.
I'm not sure, but there's a lot of talk about them.
Those
Brownless and James Brayshaw on
those
the radio.
Those Brayshaw boys are sensational. They are sensationally fit. They on Christmas Day or New Year they do these, they spend the morning doing this intense running, and it's just crazy. I don't know exactly what they do, but it is crazy. But that is a lot of footy. We've covered that for most of the hour. So this is going to go...
Well, this is the little bit of extra time.
Yeah.
We've played out to a draw, and we're going to play a couple
imagine
of extra
what if there's a draw in the grand final? First tier of extra time.
My brother's heart won't be able to take it. He's just going to have a massive coronary in the stands of the MCG. That'll be it for him. See you later. We've missed you.
Imagine the other people that could have a...
I want to point out as well, Richmond fan, when the game was down to the wire, only a point in, it went into labour
Oh, wow.
Happy little tiger baby popped out.
Jeez, wow.
It's gonna be a pretty tense time, but
Interesting.
very much looking forward to the grand final. Hope it's a good game.
Indeed.
But yes, special grand final edition. A little bit of extra time for
There
you.
we go. So we're gonna go. We might make this an hour and a half podcast. So this is
Sounds
great. So we'll break this up for you if you can't, sit down and.
If you're just
watch
here
it,
for the
listen to all that.
AFL, then
No, this is it. But
That's
if you
all that is.
if you are interested in your world football, or soccer as it's called here in
world
Australia,
game, some world game,
the world game,
beautiful game.
we're going to touch on some Premier League. Brodie's going to lead it because his side's in the Premier League had a 3-2 win over Leicester at the King Power Stadium. Brodie, tell us about the weekend that was in Premier League football and European football.
Yes, well, Liverpool were able to snap an absolutely horror run of results we've had. Things were going so well with the big win against Arsenal. Then we got hammered by 5 goals against Man City. We got knocked out of the League Cup to Leicester. We've had some draws in there. It's been so disastrous and it's been so hurtful. We've been making so many defensive errors, Matthew. It hurts me. But we came out with a not particularly convincing, but
Jurgen, help your supporter. He's hurting here.
Come on, Jurgen,
Imagine
my
if he
boy.
Funny if he was watching this.
I wouldn't have thought so. I think he's got bigger fish to fry. Like hopefully scouting the transfer market for a defender come January, but not particularly convincing a 3-2 victory.
Don't
but
you reckon they get these things right at the start of the season?
well, I would have thought so.
We're 6
but,
rounds in, bros.
Yes, I know. You don't get me started on Liverpool's defensive woes because we're going to be here for a lot longer than an hour.
I was
and a
going to
half.
say the result you picked out of Manchester City. So they continued. They had another dominant performance, didn't they?
Yes, but Liverpool were able to get a good win against Leicester.
That was good.
3-2.
So you're happy?
Philip Coutinho scoring an otherworldly banger from distance off a free kick. He has a
seen that
phenomenal
photo?
long-range strike.
Did you see that
Philip
photo I
Coutinho.
sent you about Coutinho?
No, what was this about?
The sports bet or something.
No,
on
I didn't
Facebook
see
saying
this.
it
Oh,
was
it's
like,
about how he was playing with
it was like when you thought you were playing with
Iniesta and
they're still getting a ball from Oxlade.
Oxlade-Chamberlain was particularly uninspiring.
He was quite
in his
serviceable.
starting role.
He was quite serviceable for me in FIFA when I was taking manager mode very seriously.
There you go.
Oxlade-Chamberlain.
There you have it.
Yeah.
That's definitely a measuring stick, FIFA. Also,
You
as
can
well,
tell how much of a log I am in terms of knowing my players. people.
I've betrayed FIFA this year. I've moved to Pro Evolution Soccer. Yeah, I know. One of the great backstabbings of all time. Brodie has moved to Pro Evolution Soccer.
That's
and I
right
just
up
want to
there.
give some credit to Pez. I'm having a pretty good time with it. But anyway,
And
that's
good value for money, apparently.
yes, cost me $40. That's pretty good. But anyway,
I think FIFA's better still, but hey, I don't give a
each
I don't
to
give
their
a crap.
own.
I don't have time for video
let's
games.
not come to-
There's
let's
too
not
much
come to
sport to be watching
blows.
rather than playing.
let's not come to blows over FIFA versus Pez because that's a whole nother podcast entirely.
We'll actually have to do. Maybe we should do that for a special edition, though. A match.
Oh yeah, I'm
A
down for that.
Match. Yeah, why not?
I'm absolutely down for that.
Keep
but,
an eye on that. Maybe when FIFA or Pez is out, but FIFA 18 is that out yet? No.
September 29, I want to say. So, just coming up around the corner. But Manchester City, of course, the other team that very much impressed. Coming up against a Crystal Palace side that has been absolutely woeful this season.
So they were impressive against a woeful team.
Yes, which isn't saying all that much. But hey,
It was like Manchester United
putting
beat
5
Stoke
past
4.
anyone is impressive.
Oh,
Putting 5 past anyone is impressive. And Crystal Palace, they're in really big trouble. They're in really, really big trouble. They are the only side in the history of top-flight football, not just the Premier League since 1992, but in top-flight football in England ever, to start their first 6 games of the season without a win and without a goal. They haven't quite reached the level of Portsmouth, who a few years ago went 0-8 to start the season, but at least they scored. Things are looking really dismal down there.
So they're on 0.
They have not scored at all, no.
So have they drawn games at least? Have they done? So they're on 0.
0-6. They've lost 6 games to start the season. And then, of course, just getting the phone up here so I can check that this is correct, because Crystal Palace coming up have Manchester United at Old Trafford next.
Oh,
That's going to be tough. And then after that, they have Chelsea.
that's gonna be.
So they will, unless something goes drastically wrong for either Manchester United or Chelsea, they're going to equal the worst ever start.
Manchester United beat Stoke 4-0. If my memory serves me correctly.
Yes. No.
And-
sorry, I'm looking at the other result. Chelsea beat Stoke 4-0. Manchester United beat Southampton 1-0.
That was a shaky game. Sorry, I think I was looking at it was Chelsea that was 4-0.
Southampton are quite a good team.
I was watching the Fox Sports News.
Especially at home, Southampton are a good team. So they've got some real troubles, Crystal Palace. Then after that, they've got Newcastle at St James, which is probably their next winnable game. Obviously, Newcastle went down to Brighton overnight. But that's
1-0.
Newcastle at
Matt
home.
Ryan.
Newcastle at home isn't an easy task at
Oh,
all.
St James Park. That's massive, that ground.
Then they've got West Ham and Tottenham at Wembley, so hopefully they can squeeze a result or two out of a poor Tottenham at home who can't seem to get adjusted to the new ground.
They could start the
or a poor West
season
Ham.
winless after 10 games. And potentially pointless. Because I don't think they're going to score against Manchester United. I don't think they're going to score against Chelsea unless they put teenagers on the park.
They've got
But I can provide, bro.
West Ham's the one result I can see them getting a point out of, or potentially all three if things go well. But there's just real trouble at Crystal Palace at the moment, and I do quite like Crystal Palace. I think they've got some talent. Wilfred Zaha, who I believe is don't quote me on this because I didn't get to watch most of Crystal Palace's game, so I'm just going to double check before I go throwing it out there. But they're in big trouble, Crystal Palace, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But I can tell you I can bring a bit of perspective on who might be coming up. Leeds United might be making a return to the Premier League. They're currently sitting comfortably on 20 points at the top of the
I just
championship.
wanted to say, Crystal Palace are missing Wilfred Zaha, who is a very important cog in their team. Is very talented.
Absolutely. But you think in a Premier League you need a plethora of good, or at least 2 or 3 good players.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't just
That's
rely
not
on
enough.
one. But I can tell you that Leeds United are playing some. But Aston Villa, yes, another big win,
Pushing up
2-1.
towards the promotion.
2-1 against Nottingham Forest at Villa Park. I'm very happy.
That's a good
as you
result.
can tell. It is a good result, and they've strung
Yeah.
2 wins in a row in the championship. And
Good feelings amongst Aston Villa.
I was listening to Potato Face. I've actually forgotten his name. Steve Bruce. I didn't forget his name.
Yeah.
I just know
Promotion
him by his-
specialist, Potato Face.
That's what they call
Holy
him.
moly.
He
Is that
does-
because he's a massive spud?
But, oh no. Manchester United player.
There you go.
What is he bring?
Long time past.
Hull? Was he brought Hull to the Premier League?
I believe that might be
Was it
correct,
Wolves?
actually. I'm going to say it was Hull.
Okay. But he's brought a few
I miss
sides.
the old Hull days with Mick McCarthy.
But-
He was a character, wasn't he? The old 07, 08 days. I
But-
yearn for them.
But again, like I said on the last podcast, is that we've been threatening.
Threatening, have you?
And playing, but that's the championship. He's just, but he's like Villa have just been threatening, and this I think it was at this point. I think they sacked Di Matteo after 15 games because they were about like 8
Champions
goals.
League winning manager, Roberto Di Matteo.
He couldn't even do it in the championship. Wow, how bad! Oh, rough. But I think
Rough.
I think it was very tough for him to take over a side that's never been relegated. But anyway, but they're now 9th, and they're a win outside the playoffs and about 7 points behind Leeds. But
And
Leeds
you don't think the loss of Ross McCormack to Melbourne City, is going to play any sort of negative part in Aston Villa's campaign?
good riddance? I couldn't care less. No, seriously, he was obviously a player that was good enough for the championship. We got him from Fulham. Obviously a championship.
The general
player.
consensus around Ross McCormack is he plays really excellently for pretty bad teams.
Yeah.
Especially against really bad teams, which should see him fit right in the Hyundai A-League.
Yeah.
That's not a bad get for Melbourne City, that.
Oh, would
Not
be.
at all.
I'd
So,
be heckling him.
a big shame for Melbourne City with Bruno Fornaroli going down with injury because he's such an important part of that Melbourne City machine.
He's a
that I've
character.
been
I
looking
like
to.
him.
Yes, famously throwing his cue cards in
It
the
should
air
be-
and
it
swearing
should-
his head off. In
It should be
post-match speech
interesting.
to the
It
FA
should
Cup.
be interesting to see that. We might do a preview of the A League next week because
Yes.
that all starts off on the 6th.
That's a good idea, but let's come with our predicted tables. I think might be an idea for the Hyundai A-League. But it's good to hear Aston Villa are doing well. Of
Yes.
course, some
So hopefully-
Australian
I will make
influence,
I will
really
make
good
this commitment to any Aston Villa fans listening or watching. I will, if Aston Villa get promoted, I'll be travelling to Villa Park for their first game back in the Premier League.
There you go.
But it's got to happen first. Do it.
Yeah, I heard it
Goodness
here
sake.
first. We'll move on to some other football around the world. I just want to quickly touch on a very, very impressive performance. Anyone watching may have noticed the scarf. I don't know if I've got the logo in frame. You might think
You
I'm
might have
kind of a
just left
Celtic FC fan. Also had a very good week. Tommy Rogic scoring.
A belter in a
against
big
the
game.
Rangers, yes.
That was a big game.
A big derby.
Celtic and
But
the Rangers.
here I've got the Real Betis scarf bought from the Benito Villamaran, I believe is the stadium that Real Betis play in, from a cheeky visit I took down to Spain a few months ago. The
You see,
official store
he's
for
like
it.
many of these people that around this area. I better be careful before I get hit with a cane or something. Is that everyone? He was another person that went on their European holiday. Good, cool.
It's quite nice down in Spain.
I went for a typical
Maybe it was
Australian
delightful.
holiday.
Only time I've ever been overseas, though, so
Okay.
I
That was actually a pretty good trip, and
Yes.
you went to see some. You were at the.
was at the Santiago Bernabeu, but I
yeah.
did take a visit to the Real Betis Stadium as well. And I did get this lovely scarf. A fantastic week for Real Betis, who went and they beat Real Madrid 1-0 in the dying embers of the game, which ended a 74-match run of goal scoring for Real Madrid.
Wow.
An outstanding effort.
And he's got
by
that
the boys
scarf in.
at Betis, and
Shove
here
it.
we go on the bandwagon.
There we
Away
go.
we go. Real Madrid, go get stuffed. Betis to be the champions.
It's almost a sackable offence for a manager.
To lose to Real Betis.
Oh, and not that, and not to score.
Well, I mean, for a Real Madrid manager, possibly not Zinedine Zidane, given he's only lost one more game than he's actually won trophies. I believe the status he's won 7 trophies and lost 8 games as manager at that club. I think he's doing quite a good job. Real Madrid are a powerhouse of world football, but it's funny how quickly tides can turn, because at the start of the season, everyone had put the big cross through Barcelona saying this was their year to drop down. They'd lost Neymar, the board was a shambles, and things were going horribly wrong at the new camp. And then after
Neymar leaving was a good thing.
a few weeks of the
Except for Edison
season,
Cavani.
a few weeks of the season, suddenly the panic button hit at the Bernabeu after a slightly rough start, and Barcelona looking the goods to start the year, even though Ousmane Dembele has gone down with a 4-month injury. Things are still going well for Barca.
It's just still got a quality, and they can invest in depth.
Yeah, that'll be
Their
quite alright.
their last rostered player in Barcelona B would be arguably one of the best players in the A-League.
Well, I would say that was any arguably at all. I think
Particularly
that's
if
a
you're
pretty
getting the
comfortable
caliber of
assumption.
Ross McCormick. Oh, goodness.
Are you suggesting that Ross McCormack may line up in Barcelona's front three next season? Is that what you're saying?
I would say he would be the last player in Barcelona B as a shining.
MSM, McCormack, Suarez, Messi. I'd watch it.
Oh, for goodness
I'd
sake!
watch
You
it.
can only do that in FIFA. Only in FIFA. But anyway,
I don't know if that's a good idea, because McCormack's quite a large lad. It might actually incite Luis Suarez to go biting again. Could be a bit hungry. See someone a little round around the edges, looking quite nice.
Nom,
Might
nom,
go
nom.
in for a bit of a chop.
nom nom.
What do you
nom.
reckon? Potentially. It's not
Yeah,
all that far out
absolutely.
there. And then, of course, we want to touch on one more thing.
Yes.
That happened in the world of football. The sensational...
Talk about politics and sport.
Sensational snub of
What's
superstar
going on?
Sam. A huge buzz around women's football. at
What the
moment,
hell's
which-
going wrong with you, FIFA?
Excellent. Sam Kerr, of course, the beacon of hope amongst Australian football, the shining poster lady for a wonderful golden age of women's football in Australia. She was fantastic in our friendlies against
Sister
Brazil.
of Daniel Kerr, if I'm correct.
That is true. A little bit of sporting talent running through the veins. She was so excellent in those friendlies. And she's been...
and she was dominant in the World Cup. Oh, no, not the World Cup.
the
was that
Tournament of Nations.
Tournament of Nations,
Which is
yes.
only 4 teams. And she was snubbed, of course, for a spot as World Player of the Year. A few USA girls getting the nods there. Of course, being a little more marketable, being from the US potentially. I'm not implying that they might choose these things based on marketability, being a US player, but
talk about politics as well. I mean, it almost disenfranchises anybody to try and be the best.
well, I
Because
do want to say
if you know you are the best, and you are the best, and Sam Kerr is the best, then I mean, she won't probably care on the basis that she knows she's.
and I do want to say with Sam Kerr as well, she is very young compared to a lot of those players, and she's got a World Cup year coming up. She's got a World Cup year coming up.
That's crap. That's crap, Brodie. If you are the best player, I mean, that's like.
All I'm saying is...
It's the saying, if Dustin Martin, when he was like 21, had the year that he's having now, I mean, that's
All I'm saying is she's had a very good few months, but I think that before the next Player of the Year voting, she will solidify her spot as one of the world's best players, and I think that it'll be too hard to keep her out of the conversation next time around.
spur her on to be an even better player, and I think she can. I mean, like, I love her success really just epitomizes where, it's almost been like a rock star couple of weeks for the Matildas.
And good.
And we talked about them last week. They were fantastic in those two.
And since then, we have an announcement that we're playing China in a friendly at Amy Park, which I'm going to scoot my butt along down to. I'm going to bring my younger sister, try and get a little bit of engagement with the younger lady of the family in some sports, which I think would be very good. And I think that's one of the things Matildas
Shout out to her.
Shout out to my younger sister Matilda, I think.
Matilda
for the Matildas.
Imagine if Matilda Calburn playing for the Matildas.
So gonna make a nice family day of it, and
That should be good. That's
Plenty
what it's all
to
about.
like about the Australian
That's what it's all
women's team.
about. And families and young girls are going to watch these internationals. And I mean, I think.
Plenty of role models in that side with Sam Kerr, Lisa Devana scoring.
But this is the thing. I think people.
Goal.
This has happened. I think people just need to now go to it. Now that they're saying that, because at the moment, like I'm thinking about our national teams, they're our most successful. They are our most informed national team at the moment.
Yeah, unless we can get a good win in the international rules against Ireland, the most important tournament of all.
Is that happening?
International rules.
No, it is
Yeah,
happening.
it is,
happening.
I believe.
That's a high pitched register there. But
Yeah.
anyway, I actually know
That's
that
why
it is happening.
I think it is.
It is happening this year because it is the last thing being played at Domain or something.
Yeah, you're right. That's absolutely correct. They're
What
not
a
playing
way!
in Melbourne,
What
are
a
they?
way to send out.
They might just start demolition works while they're playing the international rules game.
I thought, to be perfectly honest, I thought they were going to turn the international rules into AFLX. Because that is pretty much.
I know what you-
Why,
that's
actually, why not?
That's it.
Why? Because it is
That's a good
played.
point.
It is played on a square, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why not play that at like Lakeside Stadium or on Amy Park?
That's a
Why
very
not?
good point, actually. That's a very good point.
If
I
it's
don't
played on a
understand.
rectangle, they played at Croke Park and all. Yeah, let's play it at Amy Park. That would be interesting. AFL fans is like, hang on. They'll walk in and they're like, this is a witch stick, right? What the fuck?
Is this a rectangle?
What is
A rectangle pitch?
rectangular stadium? It's
Melbourne
round.
rectangular. What are these massive bubbles surrounding the stadium?
I
How about
international. You may as well play at that new that redeveloped stadium, NRB Stadium in Perth. That's a very good stadium. I should play it there. Because if it's painless, anyway, who gives a shit about the international cup? Bring back State of Origin.
Yes,
That's my stance.
We've talked
Bring
about
back
this
State of
before.
Origin.
We've touched on State of Origin before. We need to settle down, Matthew. You're
Yes.
getting a bit worked up.
Oh, we get worked about everything. The AFL's got it. Imagine if you have a look at the in tray of what the AFL has to deal with.
You think that
They've got
you're
a-
complaining about international rules makes that pile? Potentially.
It's been in the
been in there for
it's
a
been in the
long
pile for like decades, bro. No one wants the international, particularly now that it's so heavily skewed towards Ireland.
I'm not angry about it. I just don't give a stuff.
They should get rid of it. People
All
don't give a
right.
stuff of
See
it.
you later, international rules.
Yeah.
Been nice knowing you.
See you later. But
Pooches.
yes. So is there anything else in the world of football? No.
In the world of soccer, I can't particularly say there's anything that's jumped out at me. Wayne Rooney, of course, been charged with drink driving. A very naughty boy he is.
But in the last round for Everton, he
He now has more demerit points on his licence than Crystal Palace have points in the Premier League. Anyway, moving on to the.
that's pretty easy.
Moving on to.
He had a
cricket.
massive gash on his eye in
Yeah, he
game.
copped an old elbow from someone. He was bleeding quite profusely. It was quite ugly.
And then they strapped it up together. He face planted.
Mind you, I did say that it was quite ugly, but that's coming from Wayne Rooney. I mean, you could do him up in makeup and have him look as beautiful as possible, and it still would be a little bit ugly, wouldn't it?
Yikes.
From poor old Wayne. What's the old Frankie Boyle joke? He got a hair transplant back in the day. Someone should have told him they do faces as well.
Oh. Oh.
Sorry,
Jeez.
Wayne. Sorry, Wayne.
Well, but anyway, I think that's a fair bit of soccer that we've
Move us on
covered.
from football. The claws are out and getting caddy.
The cricket's been disappointing.
Big loss overnight to India. In
So
the ODI,
Australia have lost the series. They've lost the series to India. They've got 2 more ODIs and they've got a couple of gimmicky 220s. This is not a great Ashes preparation, but the only highlight was Aaron Finch, who returned from a calf injury, made 126. So it was really good. But
8th international ODI 100 for Aaron Finch.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Being a renegade by choice, even though I really couldn't really. I mean, if you held me at gunpoint and asked me to pick a Big Bash team, I'd say
I
them, but
like
I'm a big
both
Aaron
Melbourne's
Finch fan.
teams. I would say Melbourne Stars because I only go to their games because
Yeah, I've been to way more Melbourne Stars games than I've
I
been
like the
Renegades.
Renegades. I like both. I love the Big Bash, and it's going to be a nice year of the Big Bash.
And Aaron Finch has been a stalwart of that competition for a number of years, and
but
really flexing his muscle on Indian soil with a nice 100, but it's not good enough because a 5-wicket loss to India is disappointing.
And the concerning thing about that's arisen, that has come up from this ODI has been the Australian batting, and it's been collapsing.
Another collapse, yeah.
And it's something's got to change, and something's got to. And Stephen Smith has come out and said this is not good enough, and they need to change it. There's been some rumours that.
How long can you say those things before you have to start putting them in action, though? Like,
well, they've been talking about Michael Bevan coming back, and that's obviously going to be huge, particularly in terms of ODI batting.
Yeah,
he would be pivotal because he was such a great batsman.
I was going to say, are you bringing him back to be a batting?
No,
coach?
he
Stick him in the middle order.
No, but Why not? But they were saying that he's basically came out and said, "Where do I play?" He wants to come back. So Australia, the concern is
pushing age a little bit, Michael.
But the concern is that this preparation for Australia for the Ashes, I mean, it's not a. Australia are no certainties to win this series. It will be a closer series now.
It's far from a certainty. Very far from
because England have had a reasonable summer at home.
So give me your summary of the state of Australian cricket right now, just for the next couple of minutes. Tell me, with a big home series against England coming up in the Ashes, it's going to be a time of great scrutiny. What do you think? Where do you think we're at?
I think the batting is a problem, and I think.
And what can we do to fix it?
Well, I think we just need to. Well, you take it if it's going back to basics, but also, I think, for me, it's just they're just not sticking around enough. I don't think they're smarter. I mean, they're playing a pretty grueling series in India. It's actually quite hot in India. Both of those, the second and the third ODI was really sapping energy-wise. But I mean, the other thing was that in terms of why Australia's been losing, we didn't have Mitchell Starc or Josh Hazlewood, who have been left out of this series to because they were injured, and then now obviously putting them into the preparation for the Ashes. And part of why Australia are playing poorly is because our bowling isn't strong. We're playing Pat Cummins, who will fly home after the after the ODIs. He won't play the T20s, and he might be in the contention for the Ashes. And he's bowling okay, but we're relying on our attack in the last couple of games. We've been relying on Nathan Coulter-Nile, who's an all-rounder. Not really a strong. He bowls pretty quick, but he's not a.
I was going to say
he's an
not
all-rounder.
a strong batsman.
And also Richardson, who isn't your frontline bowler. He's a quick bowler, but he's not your frontline. He hasn't been around. They're giving these guys experience, but the way that they're going out is not good. Last night David Warner just playing, outside the line or inside it, and just completely missing it. I think. Some of the decision making. I think they just need to be smarter about their batting, and they just need to work harder. And obviously, with the Ashes, it's going to be you're going to have to change the way you bat. The mode's going to change.
If the Ashes don't go well, do we see a bit of an overhaul in terms of Darren Lehmann maybe?
Darren Lehmann's finished after these Ashes. It's not a case of sacking him. He's going.
Is he in
this is his. I'm pretty sure this is his last series before Justin Langer or. Jason Gillespie or whoever they've got lined up next will take over because
bring old Dizzy back into the middle order.
Yeah,
cheeky little 200 on Bangladesh soil one time, if you remember correctly, in a Test match as a night watchman.
Yeah,
maybe there's some talent there.
Currently, part-time coaching the PNG side. Who
did not know that. There you go.
Who might actually be playing? Might be playing Ireland, a few other nations, and the West Indies to qualify for the World Cup.
It is all happening down at PNG, isn't it? My goodness gracious me!
What a time to be alive!
What a time to be.
The next thing they'll need to develop is their national soccer team, because they'll actually, I think, in the bottom 10 or something.
The bottom 10 might have a little bit of work to do, I think.
Yep.
Maybe time to maybe you focus on your strengths and you put soccer on the back burner for a little bit down there
absolutely.
at PNG, potentially.
Not
it's
much,
a long way to the top.
Not much in terms of the cricket. The tennis, the first ever, I think the only major bit of tennis that's been going on, other than some Davis Cup that has been happening, is the Laver Cup. Now,
I don't know much about this, but I did see Nick Kyrgios having a bit of a cry about it, so I can only assume that it was a massive success.
He laid it all on the line in the Laver Cup, so I probably should explain what the Laver Cup is just briefly before we wrap up. The Laver Cup is basically tennis's answer to golf's the Ryder Cup. So in the Ryder Cup how they have the Team USA and Team Europe. Oh, actually, that's something else actually. But it's basically a team. This year it was like Team Europe versus Team World. So they're trying to make tennis a bit more interesting. And in team, there are two main highlights for me, or two interesting points. The first one, perhaps on a lighter note, is that Nick Kyrgios, as we touched on before, he played a really good singles match against Roger Federer, pushed Roger Federer in the third and final set. He was coached by John McEnroe, which I think is quite funny.
You like that?
Talk about abusive tennis players in Kyrgios and McEnroe. That's incredible. Anyway, so that was interesting, but the perhaps the highlight for the whole entire thing was obviously in Team Europe, you had Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal in the same team. But in the doubles match, they were both on the same side of the court. And everyone watched that game. And imagine, like, I don't know about you, but it's just almost like a dream come true to see two of the best and rivals for so long
come together and
for a doubles. Because like there was a photo that just really encapsulated, like, I mean, you know how the doubles, you know, in the doubles team they like do that with like the tennis board. That just like Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, you just couldn't get that.
the two greatest of all times teaming up.
But this is why I think the right.
Sounds
I
like a
think
bit of like a sitcom of some sort,
But
isn't
this is why I think the Laver Cup will be successful.
You like the idea of it?
I think it will. I think the next one is in. So this year was in Prague. So next year I think it's in New York or something. I don't know.
There you go. Just excuse me being on my phone for anyone watching, and for you, of course, Matthew. Don't think that I'm listening to, but Channel 7 sports reporter Nathan Templeton reporting that Trent Cotchin has apparently been cleared by the match review panel. Developing story. Developing story. We're not
on
going
the bottom of your screen here, we've got the breaking.
Not going to call it. If we want to go on another 10 minutes while this story is developing, do you want to tell me a little about the NRL Grand Final that's coming up potentially? And we'll see if we can push this as far as we can.
Okay, so
we got all day, man.
So whilst Brodie is being a journalist,
following up on this story, you tell me about the NRL. Please.
So in the NRL Grand, because he doesn't actually give a shit about the NRL.
I do care about the NRL.
But I tell you what,
it's not on the top of my priority.
But I do, because the mighty Melbourne. I should have worn their jumper. So I've got a Melbourne.
You got a Storm jumper?
Yeah, I do.
There you go.
Bought it from Bali.
That's definitely a legit. Hang on, you got a Melbourne Storm jumper from Bali?
Actually, it looks pretty legit.
Maybe.
No. Seriously, I'll show you it after the show. It's actually pretty legit.
All right, we'll set up a Facebook.
But the Melbourne Storm defeating the Brisbane Broncos 30-0 on Friday night, and also the other prelim final, the Sydney Roosters, the Chooks choked, and they got done by a rampant North Queensland Cowboys. Now, I spoke about them last week. They don't have JT. They don't have a number of their stars who are injured, but they've managed to make the grand final from 8th position, and it's quite incredible. And they received, when they returned back to the airport, I think it was Cairns Airport, they got a hero's welcome. They were like, fans flocked to the airport to welcome back their team. And it was quite incredible to see. And the way that North Queensland played was quite exceptional. I know my good mate Jose from Fish Tank he's a big Cowboys man, and he's very happy for them. So it will be a very good grand final. I'm looking forward to seeing the Melbourne Storm, obviously. A lot of Victorians whose sides aren't playing in the AFL grand final will be bandwagoning onto the Melbourne Storm, because nothing says it better than sticking up to those New South Wales sides and the New South Wales run NRL.
Rough. That's a big call.
But no New South Wales side, so that's good.
No, we've got North Queensland.
But I'm looking forward to seeing the stars of the Melbourne Storm. Obviously, Cooper Cronk played his last game at home game, so he will play his last game. Possibly might play his last game ever, because he's retiring at the end of this year. Cameron Smith also achieved another important milestone in that game against the Broncos, where he kicked his 1,000th goal. So he kicked his 1,000th goal, so that's incredible. He's seriously a gun, Cameron Smith. And obviously there's their depth and their squad. I think the Melbourne Storm will win, because I just think they'll be just too strong. They've been the best side all year, and they have been. They finished on top as minor premiers by about 3 or 4 wins, so they were that dominant. Having said that, North Queensland are more than capable of beating the Storm if they're on their day. So that's a bit of the NRL.
Is North Queensland Cowboys as strong of a team as the North Queensland Fury, by any chance?
Oh, North Queensland.
You know, I love a chat about the North Queensland
That's a
Fury.
rhetorical question. I think you know the answer to that. We certainly know what side.
Question: does Robbie Fowler play for the North Queensland Cowboys?
No.
I think that's my case rested.
But they do have the Cowboys do have a legend at their club.
Who's that?
Jonathan Thurston.
And is he playing?
No. So it'll be interesting.
There you go.
It'll be interesting to see, but I hope it's going to be a great game. Talk about that, the AFL Grand Final on the Saturday, and then you have the NRL Grand Final on the Sunday.
Yeah, so where is the NRL Grand Final being played?
It's played at ANZ. It's played at what is that stadium? The Sydney Olympic Park.
The big old one in Sydney.
The big empty one.
Yes, that's ANZ. The one with all the bolts in the floor that Joe Roughhead goes and.
I wonder if you go to the ANZ Stadium or whatever. and then you see that there's you go to some of the upper seats and you see like rotten like chip packets from 1980s because no one goes to that ground anymore.
No,
it's virtually empty.
You think it's empty?
Like the South Sydney Rabbitohs played game there, and they only get like maybe 10,000 at most to an NRL game. And they look empty, those grounds.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of ANZ Stadium, especially when they've been playing AFL there.
Well, there's no AFL anymore, so good riddance for that stadium.
Yeah, I know. Because it's just
poor Mike Fitzpatrick.
The quality of the ground is just quite atrocious, really, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, indeed.
It's caused injuries before, and that's not what we want to see from people at all. Can't find many follow-ups on the Trent Cotchin situation.
But
we're trying to drag it out.
We'll get this up. So that news was breaking at around about 11 o'clock. So
notice how I've been attributing my information to sources. So if they're wrong, I can tear into them rather than have people tear into me.
But I think, Brodie,
I know nothing about the situation except for what other people tell me.
That's all we have time for, I think. I think we covered most of the sport. I think the next week's show is going to be pretty big because we're going to be doing a lot of previews because the A-League starts next week. Bathurst for all those hotheads, those motor people, whatever. I was trying to think of another one that was...
Motor mouths?
Motor mouth. That could be anyone. That
Motor
could be
heads.
me right now.
Motorheads.
Motorheads, yes. Bathurst is happening on the weekend. And of course, I bumped into Will Pukowski, who's been selected for Victoria to play in the Matador Cup or whatever it's called.
Very nice.
So...
I thought it was the Ryobi Cup, is it not?
No, that was ages ago.
No, I'm well behind. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's changed. It's also the Ashes are called the Mulligan Ashes. Get
what?
The corporate... Yep.
Excuse me.
No one's ever called it the Mulligan Ashes, but it's the Ashes. Get rid of the corporate crap. Anyway, so next week's program is actually going to be a fair bit of sport happening after the AFL and NRL finishes.
Yes, and
so looking forward to that.
We've got a big week coming up. I think that potentially, if I'm feeling up to it, I might do a little. Maybe 10-minute grand final preview from the line at the MCG. Maybe get some words out on the streets. It might go up on the YouTube channel about what people are thinking in the middle of the night in the MCG line.
Well, you think about this.
Keep busy.
You think about this, Brodie. This podcast is ever evolving. We might evolve to a point where we actually might have a name for it. We're gonna have to work on that because it's currently untitled. It's just Matt and Brodie.
It is Matt and Brodie. I've been thinking.
Actually, let's throw a competition. Let's throw a competition out there to the people.
I'll work on some names and bring them up next week, you know.
We're going to have a postal survey, are we?
Yes.
Oh.
Can everyone please mail in
add it to the
your
other
name suggestions? Just tick a little box and we'll have the results to you by middle of November. Sometimes.
There's a bit of a competition for you. Look out for that. Let's have a postal survey. Like, we're having a postal survey for everything. Same-sex marriage.
What did you think of...
We're having a postal survey on should pineapple be on pizza? I voted yes.
I vote no for pineapple on pizza.
Oh...
Are we allowed to say our positions?
We're going to have to cut that out. We're going to have to cut this whole same-sex marriage.
I've just been trying to drag it on so I can get a Trent Cotchin verdict.
We're not going to get cut.
It does look as if Trent Cotchin has been cleared at this point in time, which is very, very good news for him. I mean, you always want your captain playing on the big stage at the grand final.
Yep. So that should be interesting. So
I really hope he does get up.
So that would be great. But I think that's all we have time for this show.
Sorry for diverting into politics at the very end, just while I tried to get some secondary confirmations.
We try to avoid politics because
absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, this is what sport is all about. It's actually about the theatre and it's about the romance. And once this whole Cotchin thing is that we can talk more about Richmond and Adelaide and the story and the
because that's the real story, isn't it? It's not about a suspension.
Because it's all about AFL.
Basil Zemplis building his narrative that it's all about Trent Cotchin and if he's going to play next week. This is about two fantastic teams who have played all well, bounced back from adversity over the past couple of years, and deserve to be where they are. I'm very, very excited for Saturday. I hope it's a ripper game, and good luck to both sides. Should be fun. Should be a good time. It's my Christmas grand final day. Oh, it's going to be a good time.
There we go. Where will you be watching?
I'll be watching at a relative's house, in between taking a nap at each quarter time, three-quarter time, half-time break, because I'm going to be exhausted from that bloody 2 a.m. lining up in the middle of the night wake up.
Oh, wow.
I might bring the old play pillow, rest the head on the concrete.
I'll be in Bendigo eating chicken wings, which will be great.
That does sound like a pretty good grand final day.
That's good. I'm going to look forward to that. But yeah, it should be good. Wherever you are, enjoy your grand final weekend.
Have a lovely
whether it's the AFL
final,
or NRL. We'll be back next week with plenty of sport. Plenty of sport starting up. We'll have the review of all the AFL and NRL action, and there's plenty of sport as well. So we're looking forward to that, Brodie. And until then, we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.